If you're anything like us, then you probably play video games to get away from all the negativity in your life. After all, a video game is never going to ask you why you haven't emptied the dishwasher, why your latest piece of work has so many spelling errors, or why you haven't given it any grandkids. And you should definitely get on with that because you aren't getting any younger. Let me live my life. Occasionally though, video games think it's mighty big and or clever to hurl insults at their players. And for this list, we're calling out the biggest bullies of the lot. To be clear, we're not talking about the times that games insulted players' intelligence, nor are we looking at games that were so bad or disappointing that they were an insult to fans. No, we're talking about the times that games made fun of, laughed at, or otherwise put players down with mean words or actions. I'm Ashton from Triple Jump, and here are 10 times video games insulted their players. Number 10, Wolfenstein: The New Order. Can I play, Daddy? We're kicking off our list with a game that doesn't even begin before it starts taunting its players. Developed by Machine Games, published by Bethesda and released in 2014, Wolfenstein: The New Order follows series protagonist BJ Blazkowicz as he and a resistance group attempt to take out, as in kill, not for dinner, Wilhelm Death's Head Strass, a Nazi commander. The game is largely set in the 60s, in an alternate history in which the Axis nation won the Second World War, and paints a very different, horrific picture of post-war Europe. Before players get into any of that though, they must first choose on which difficulty to play the game. However, instead of sticking to traditional naming conventions, which would usually range from expert on the harder end of things to casual on the easier, Wolfenstein: The New Order opts to give its difficulty settings spicy names. These range from Uber through I Am Death Incarnate, Bring 'em On and Don't Hurt Me to Can I Play, Daddy? The Can I Play, Daddy option would be insulting enough on its own, but it's also accompanied by a picture of BJ Blazkowicz sporting a dummy and a bonnet. For the reference game, I'm not a baby. I just want to enjoy the story, alright? Number 9, Duck Hunt: The Dog. It isn't just recent releases that are mean to their players. In fact, one of the earliest and most famous examples of games laughing at players for failing is the 1984 light gun shooter, Duck Hunt. The premise of Duck Hunt was pretty straightforward. Players simply used the NES Zapper in combination with a CRT TV, which, for our younger viewers, is what we had before flat screens were a thing, to blast ducks as they flew across the screen. For each successful shot, players were awarded points, and if by the end of the round they had enough, they'd advance to the next level. If not, a smug beagle would emerge from the grass and laugh at them. The Duck Hunt dog is arguably the most resented video game character in history, and has frequently appeared on lists of the most despicable villains or annoying characters. Still, we do have to respect the Duck Hunt dog somewhat. It takes some serious balls to laugh in the face of someone that's pointing a hunting rifle right at your face. Well, either that or some serious stupidity. We'll leave it up to you, the viewer, to decide which is more apt. Number 8, Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain: The Chicken Hat. The Metal Gear games are largely fairly serious. Though, with that said, over the years they've treated us players to the occasional humorous moment in order to cut through some of the darker themes. A fantastic example of the series' goofy humour is the inclusion of the Chicken Hat in Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain. However, far from being simply a quirky poultry-themed fashion choice, the hat is as useful to players as it is insulting. Should Metal Gear Solid 5 players find themselves dying over and over again and struggling to complete a mission, they will be awarded with a hilarious headpiece which, when donned by Venom Snake, makes the game much easier. The flip side, of course, is the fact that Snake looks utterly ridiculous, and the player has been forced to admit to both themselves and to anyone who may have been watching that they failed to beat the game under normal circumstances. Put simply, the Chicken Hat is the Metal Gear Solid equivalent of a dunce cap, and though it might look slightly funnier, it's still shameful to have to wear it in the first place. Number 7, Time Splitters 2: Monkey Assistant. Most of the time, if developers want to insult their players, they'll stick in a quick quip about how lame they are for playing on easy. And so, we've really got to hand it to Free Radical for including an entire gameplay mode in Time Splitters 2 that's seemingly designed to make its least skilled players feel bad. The Monkey Assistant mode was a new addition for 2002's Time Splitters 2, and was a twist on the classic deathmatch formula. Players were plopped down into a map, and were tasked with simply killing as many opponents as possible in the time limit. However, on Monkey Assistant mode, every few seconds the player in last place would get help from an army of monkeys, who would usually attack the player in first place, thus giving the last place player the opportunity to catch up. On one hand, it's very handy to have a couple of helpers who swoop in to knock the leader down a peg or two. With that said though, it is kind of shameful to be losing so badly that literal monkeys have to come out and give you a hand. Sure, you might claw back a few points, but it comes at the cost of your dignity. Number 6, Final Fantasy VII, The Tissue. We players have earned some pretty rubbish items in our time. We're still fuming about the golden poo we got from collecting the Korok seeds in Breath of the Wilds, but few come close to the consolation prize awarded at the Battle Square in Final Fantasy VII. If Final Fantasy VII players so wish, they can go to the Battle Square and sign up for battles in order to earn various different rewards. These can range from potions and remedies to Stardust, and even the W Summon, a command materia that will allow the player to cast 2 summons in one turn. Of course, in order to win these prizes, players will have to beat their opponents. There's no need to worry about walking away empty-handed though, because even if a player gets their bottom handed to them, they still get to take home a tissue. Yes, you heard me correct, a single tissue. What purpose does the tissue serve? Absolutely none. It's basically the game's way of saying, there, we're sorry you didn't win, and we're sure you tried your very best. Now go, and take this to dry your pathetic tears. Stupid game anyway. Number 5, 50 Cent Blood on the Sand. Not bulletproof. It's one thing for a video game to insult you privately. After all, only you know that you were forced to resort to wearing the chicken hat. But it's quite another for a game to publicly shame you. Well, that's exactly what 50 Cent Blood on the Sand did to players who weren't great, despite not being very good itself. You know what they say about games in glass houses and all that. Indeed, players who opted to tackle the game on easy difficulty, which is a perfectly valid choice by the way, would be rewarded with the Not Bulletproof trophy or achievement if they died at any point throughout the game's runtime. This not only told the world you were playing this monstrosity of a game on easy, which apparently some people are quite sensitive about, but also that, even with much of the challenge removed, they had still failed. To add insult to injury, the achievement awarded Xbox 360 players 0G, meaning they didn't even get a slight increase to their gamer score to offset their shame. Let's face it though, the real shame came from playing 50 Cent Blood on the Sand in the first place. Number 4, Twisted Metal 2. No losers allowed beyond this point. If you've played any game in the Twisted Metal series, you'll know what fun they can be. The vehicular combat title gave players the opportunity to jump in a car and engage in arena-based battles with other drivers. And the aim of the game was to be the last man or woman or other standing. Playing against friends was an absolute blast, and although playing against the computer could be equally riotous, it could also be pretty tricky, as those AI drivers did not pull their punches. However, Twisted Metal 2 players soon found there was no shortcuts in life, and that playing on easy mode really wasn't an option. If players did opt to play the 1996 title on its least difficult setting, they'd find it only offered them one level and one boss. After defeating said boss, a huge red stop sign was splashed across the screen with the message, "No losers beyond this point. You must switch to medium or hard to continue." Ouch. This means that players couldn't progress any further without going back and restarting the game on a higher difficulty. Don't worry, we here at Team Triple Jump, we don't think you're a loser. Number 3, Streets of Rage 3. You play this game like a beginner. Unlike many of the other entries on this list, the insult delivered by 1994's Streets of Rage 3 is multifaceted. As seems to be the case for a lot of games, Streets of Rage 3 felt the need to mock players who chose to play the game on its least difficult setting. If players chose easy mode, after they'd reached the end of level 5 and defeated Robot X, the game delivered the scathing put-down, "You play this game like a beginner." Not only this, but it refused to let them play the final 2 stages of the game, which is, frankly, a bit mean. What's even more insulting though, is the fact that easy mode in North America was the same level of difficulty as normal mode in Japan, What that means is that Western players were mocked by the game for playing on the same difficulty as their Eastern counterparts who didn't receive the same tongue lashing. So next time you play Streets of Rage 3 on easy mode and start feeling bad about yourself because of it, just remember that 1, there's no shame in playing on easy, and B, you're having no easier of a time than those playing several thousands of miles away. Number 2, Katamari Damacy. This is not your fault, but ours for believing in you. Have you ever had someone tell you that they're not mad, they're just disappointed? Well, if you'd like to relive that specific trauma, then you can always play Katamari Damacy, a game that looks very cute, but that will make you feel very bad about yourself if you're not great at it. Originally released in 2004 and remastered in 2018, Katamari Damacy follows a teeny tiny creature known only as the Prince as he embarks on a quest to recreate the stars and the moon after his father, the king of all cosmos, destroyed them whilst drunk. To do this, he takes an object called a Katamari to Earth and must collect matter by rolling the Katamari over objects smaller than itself. As stuff sticks, the Katamari grows and the prince can pick up larger and larger items. Sadly, each level has a time limit, and if players fail to grow the Katamari to the desired size, by the time the clock counts down, they'll receive a tirade of abuse from the king of all cosmos. However, of all the cutting remarks he makes, none is as harsh as, "This is not your fault, but ours for believing in you. At least I didn't get wasted and destroy half of the universe." And number 1, Devil May Cry, Easy Automatic Mode. 2001's Devil May Cry is well known for being something of a tricky beast, and its gameplay relied heavily on combos and precise timing, which not all gamers immediately got the hang of. Even the game's normal mode is significantly tougher than equivalent difficulty settings in other titles. However, players who did struggle with Devil May Cry were offered the opportunity to turn on Easy Automatic Mode, which simplified the controls by automating combos, buffing Dante's attacks and presenting him with squishier enemies. "But Ashton," I hear you cry, "that doesn't really sound all that insulting. In fact, it sounds downright helpful." Indeed, the offer does sound great. But as is often the case with things that sound too good to be true, there was a massive catch. See, if players did opt to take the game's offer of turning on Easy Automatic Mode, it could not be turned off, and was even carried over to New Game Plus, forever a reminder of their failures. If players wanted rid of the assisted mode, they were forced to delete their entire save and start again from scratch, losing any and all progress they'd made in the process. Damn Devil May Cry, that is below the belt.